Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today on ExtremeHealthRadio.com. We really appreciate you spending some time with us. Today is Sunday, October 7th, 2012, and we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us. So this show is going to be transcribed, and it's episode number 18, so you could find it at ExtremeHealthRadio.com/18. And we are broadcasting worldwide, if you can believe it, from Southern California. So really thank you. We're doing right now 3 shows per week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you have any questions for the guest or for me, you can send them to Justin at ExtremeHealthRadio.com, or you could call our voicemail line at 949-391-7363, and we will play your message to the guest on the air. So please do that. And this show is brought to you by the Vitamix blender, which is my personal favorite blender on the market. We use it about 3 times a day, actually. It's quite a machine. And if you're in the market to buy one, please consider doing it through us at extremehealthradio.com/Vitamix. And I just want to introduce our guest, but before that, we'll talk about our show schedule. We've got some really great guests coming up. We've got Dr. Charles Partito tomorrow. He is the creator of the Ejuva Cleanse. So he'll be talking about colon health and detoxification. And we've got Nina Silver this week talking about energy medicine, rice machines, frequencies, and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So, and we've also got Nadine Artemis this week. She'll be talking about oils and cleansing and tooth care and essential oils and all that kind of good stuff. So please join us for those shows. Check out our show schedule page for more information on that. And today I'm really, really excited about having Dr. Bob Marshall on the show. He is a PhD. He's an internationally trained certified clinical nutritionist. Has been in clinical practice since 1974. And he holds degrees from the University of Dayton and Purdue University. He's a former president of the International and American Association of Clinical Nutritionists and a member of the American Society of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. And he's been a nutrition instructor at various educational institutions and has been the host of his own nutrition-based radio show, Healthline, since 1986. I've been a fan of Healthline for over 10 years. He's just got an amazing radio show. You can catch all the archives, I think, on healthline.cc. But he began manufacturing his own line of supplements after consuming and becoming sick from a tryptophan supplement derived from, get this, genetically modified soybeans. So he now is vowed to never produce a supplement made with questionable fillers, flowing agents, and artificial colors like magnesium stearate, silicon dioxide, and titanium dioxide. And he's created quantum nutrition labs for recovering from his near-death experience. So thank you, Doctor, for joining us today. We really, really appreciate this.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and hopefully I have a few pearls that can help all your listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have more than a few, that's for sure. So you are in, you're normally based out of Texas, but you're in Santa Monica today.
Yes, we have a little center here where we see patients at the Premier Center and 1416 6th Street right here in Santa Monica. And I come here every 5 weeks so that I can stay pretty good at a discipline that we developed to save my life, called quantum reflex analysis, QRA. Mm-hmm. And so I come here and practice, and I'll be here for, I'm just finishing up now. I go back tomorrow. But, usually I'm here 6 days working about 16 hours a day to see patients. And if your listeners are interested, they can give a call to the clinic there, 310-320-1132, 310-320-1132. And we have Dr. Medici here as well. So we've got a really comprehensive staff. If you have some simple problem, we can usually find what nutrients the body needs and how much very quickly with this technology. Mm-hmm. But what you may not know is that there's a second dimension to the body, and that's the energy field that controls it. It's a plasma energy field. It was proven by quantum physicist Fritz Albert Popp in the late 70s. Now that guy is the all-controlling vehicle of the body. Mm-hmm. But if you get a scar or trauma, that can block that energy flow. And while you may not notice anything at the time, as the years go by, this can get worse and worse. And as it finally, maybe 20, 30, 40 years, it can completely destroy the organic gland to which it reflexes. And it's so interesting. If you go back in the Bible, it discusses Jesus using mud, and it's actually mud that can reestablish that energy flow permanently so that you don't have to endure this. So we do 2 phases, nutrition, and then we go through the energy field. And I think it's a revolutionary thing, and I can tell you personally, it saved my life.
Wow. So, yeah, I want to get really into this plasma energy field, as you call it, because this is just fascinating. I've been listening to your radio show, too, for many, many years. And if people want to listen to your radio show, they can go on to healthline.cc, and I believe he's got all the archives there.
Yeah, and you can also go to qnlabs.com.
qnlabs.com. Okay, yeah, your show is just absolutely amazing. I mean, you're not going to get this kind of knowledge anywhere else. And this plasma energy field, from what I've learned from you, there is some sort of your DNA locks onto the plasma energy field through a photonic exchange. Is that kind of the idea?
That's right. In fact, the spectacular discovery of Dr. Fritz Popp was that the body emits light, and the emission of the light comes from the DNA, and it's the most coherent light ever discovered. And he proved that the cell actually communicates by light, not by electricity. Electricity, to him, is an artifact. It's a byproduct of the regular communication. And that's how phase-coordinated activities of the body at extreme locations occur with such speed. And yeah, he was the one who demonstrated that probably the greatest thing, the thing that made him ostracized for maybe 20 years, 25 years, was the fact that he showed you could not truly nourish the cell with anything other than something that had been once living. And at first, he thought the calories, you don't even need them. But after doing extensive study, he found that you need the DNA of the food to repair and maintain your DNA.
Okay.
And without it, your DNA may atrophy and may degrade. So, example would be you take a B vitamin, the American typical B vitamin, and it's made of coal tar derivative resin. So it's a petroleum residue left over after making gasoline, okay? Anyway, that's what the world's supply of B1 is, pretty much. Now, when the cell takes, as soon as this hits the body, 98% is excreted because the body knows this is bad news. Some gets through, and if the cell does use it, it has the propensity to degrade the DNA. Now, in a 90-day or 180-day study, you don't notice anything. But as we go over time, a year or 2 or 3, we now can see that this is degrading the DNA of the cell.
Okay.
And that was the discovery that made people very angry because, as you and I both know, almost every drug out there is non-live, so it's chemically synthesized, patented item.
Right, right.
So that was not a popular discovery. Then, by about 1978, he showed that you do need the calories. You do need the nutrition of the. It seems almost ridiculous that he would think you didn't, but he then proved you do need that. So there are 2 components to the nutrition: the DNA from whatever you've eaten, upgrading your DNA, and then the caloric energy for the cell to produce energy. So
what do you make of the breatharians then that don't necessarily eat, that many calories?
Well, I don't know. That's a kind of a tilt. I can tell you that from antiquity, before the earth was modified, it appears reasonable that food was optional. And if you go into the ancient Hindu texts from India, the Vedas, they will tell you that in the very beginning, food was optional. It was a pleasure you could have or not have, but you didn't need to eat or drink.
Wow.
The energy field of the earth was so ideal. Then someone came along and built more than 50,000 pyramids. And if you go online and look up pyramids, you'll see that the construction is spectacular. You'll also see that the blocks are larger than we can move today with our equipment, the 50-ton blocks. You'll also see that they're the same all over the earth, which is very scary. Mm-hmm. And it certainly suggests that there was a much higher level of technology in the ancient past than we have today. And they, by building these, we believe, they've altered the field so that now you can't, your little energy suckers in your body cannot get the energy it needs to maintain itself, so you have to maintain yourself with food. So
how does the field, so I'm just, I feel like we're talking about Star Wars here, I mean, it's like, so
we are.
How does the field relate, or is it the same thing as those pictures that you see in Kirlian, how do you say it, Kirlian photography?
Kirlian photography.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think it's like that.
Okay.
It's plasma, if you look at it, is actually the most recent studies suggest that space is not empty but loaded with plasma energy.
Okay.
And so it's not like the Kirlian photography shows, but what I think you want to get at is what actually happened to the situation so that we must eat food. And what that is you're facing, every day, wherever you go, you're facing a chaotic energy that's hitting your body all day long. Mm-hmm. And this chaotic energy is a tremendous stress. And so your body has to upregulate its energy by eating food and getting more energy and then allowing themselves to be able to overcome this stress that's constantly on the body.
So it's almost.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Book of Kings, but if you look back there, the kings lived 80,000, 60,000, 30,000 years. And today, if you live to 80, most people wish they didn't because they're in such bad health. So what could take us from 80,000 to 80? A 1,000-fold reduction. And it's this tremendous energy field stress.
So the energy field is almost like it surrounds the body. Does it have anything to do with the electromagnetic energy coming off from the earth and grounding yourself, or is that something different as well?
Well, as soon as you put on shoes, especially synthetic shoes, you're kind of isolated from the ground. So grounding can definitely be helpful. But that's not the problem. The problem is that you've got cell phone towers, you've got radio waves, you've got the altered cosmic energy, the unit of which is called the entroton, mm-hmm. coming at you in a chaotic, disordered fashion, challenging your own weak energy field and at times disrupting your cell-to-cell communication. So these things really accelerate aging, in my opinion. Now, what I think you're asking about is what does your plasma energy field look like? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to say because it's woven through your physical body and its hookup is at your DNA.
Okay.
It's not an easy picture to get. It's not like a Kirlian photography, Kirlian photograph.
Okay, that makes sense. So the way then, so aging, would that be some sort of like disruption in that biofield or something like that?
Very much so, but the aging is also the fact that we don't acknowledge ourselves to be an animal. See, we put on clothes and shoes, and we don't want to recognize that we're a mammal. Mm-hmm. And the price for that is we cook our food. Mm-hmm. And as you may have heard in 10 years of listening, that when we cook that food, there's a study in Medical Hypothesis 1998 that shows that by cooking the food and eating it without a digestive, you will lose up to 1,800 methyl groups per day per cell.
Okay.
Whereas if you had eaten raw food, you would lose 1,200. So the simple act of cooked food costs you a third of your already puny, very short lifespan.
Interesting.
So you're going to go from maybe 90 or 120 to a maximum of 90.
Okay. And that's because...
Just by the digestive issue. But the going from 80,000 to 80 is the energy field. So does that give you kind of a perspective?
Yeah. That's a little bit. So now how does the DNA of the food interact with your DNA, and how does that relate to like all this research going on with telomeres and those being sloughed off after each divide?
Well, your DNA can actually take a sort of a biophotonic charge from the food DNA.
Okay.
And this is one of the reasons why when the food is cooked, I think it's even more disruptive and more potentially damaging and aging than merely a demethylation episode. Lots of people like to think of aging as demethylation.
Okay.
And I can't really argue it is demethylation, but it's not the whole picture. If the food has been heated, especially above boiling, you can alter the structure of the DNA. So now, when it comes in the cell, it may challenge or further disrupt your DNA. So, to me, the cooking is a much bigger deal than we want to, at this point in time. You know, we think that raw food people are a fad and they're, you know, there's no science behind it. I think the more we get into the DNA, the more we're going, oh my God, you know.
So it's more to do with it's not necessarily as much about enzymes. I mean, although it is, but it's more about raw food people should look deeper and look at the DNA and the science behind that, as opposed to making their big argument about the enzymes.
Exactly right. Although the enzymes are destroyed by cooking, nobody can argue that. But I don't think it accounts for the total devastation that's occurring.
Okay,
you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get this kind of knowledge and level of understanding, you know, from reading online articles or going to, you know, a traditional school. You know, it's
no, you get this from years of distilling information that's coming to you. And I can tell you, I've had the privilege to work with some people who are extremely knowledgeable regarding a special form of clay. And this is a calcium aluminum silicate bentonite. Now, people, your listeners may be familiar with bentonite as a detoxifying clay, but pretty much all that's available in the world is sodium-based bentonite. This calcium comes from a freshwater area, and what I'm excited about with this is its ability to potentially eliminate certain types of toxins. And in fact, if you take it with the food, you may be able to absorb up to 98% of all the toxins in the food.
Wow.
And so you reduce this burden of detoxification for the body, and you potentially reduce the storage of these compounds.
Interesting. Okay, so when I was under the impression that, you know, most clays are to be taken on an empty stomach because, you know, it would block nutrients. But with this type of clay, it's not that way. Not that way at all. In fact, it donates calcium. Okay. It does not take any nutritive compound, and if it's traveling along the gut with your food, it can absorb up to 98% of all the toxins that are present. So it's a tremendous download of garbage, which to me is another way in which we accelerate our aging and death. Interesting. Wow, that's just fascinating. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dr. Bob Marshall from healthline.cc and Quantum Nutrition Labs. When I get back, I know, Doctor, you're a master at people's, you know, they call into your show with specific, you know, health problems. So we've got a handful of emails. We'll go through a couple of them when we get back from the break. Is that okay? Okay. Sounds great. We'll be right back with Dr. Bob Marshall. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to tell you about the best alternative cancer treatment book on the market today. It's called Cancer Step Outside the Box, and you can check that out at extremehealthradio.com/cancer. And it's written by Ty Bollinger, and we've had him on our show. He was our very first episode. He's written a prolific book on cancer, talking about all of the natural cancer treatments that are out there that are on the cutting edge. Some of them have a 93% success rate. He gives you inside the book, which is like 400 pages, he walks you through all of the natural cancer treatments that are the most effective. He's got all kinds of cutting edge research on why chemotherapy just does not work, how to heal the body, how to cleanse the body, many different ways of cleansing. And he's got entire protocols of all the most popular and powerful treatments to beat cancer. Some of them even in the stage 3 area. I highly recommend this book. If you know someone who has cancer or if you've been diagnosed, please get this book. It's really incredible information. You can check that out at extremehealthradio.com/cancer. And if you're interested in products like this, we've got tons of them in our store. So visit our store on our website and you can find out a lot of other products that are just like this. So thank you for listening. Let's get back to this interview. Okay, we're with Dr. Bob Marshall from healthline.cc. Please go check out his site and consider getting some of his products or listening to his radio show. He's just a wealth of information. And Doctor, I could talk with you all day about the plasma energy field. For some reason, that just fascinates me, but unfortunately, we have to keep going on. We got a couple emails here.
Sure.
All right, we got one from, let's see, Alexis from Napa. Let's see, I'm just going to kind of condense these down because some of them are kind of long. I have a golf ball-sized fibroid that I'm trying to get rid of using systemic enzymes from Dr. Wong and other supplements like Myomin. What else can I do to get rid of these fibroids before having children? And she says she's 34.
Well, see, the issue with fibroids is tissue oxygen. Okay? So the first thing you have to do is get a roll of pH paper. And what you want is to force your first morning urine pH, which is a beautiful indirect measure of tissue oxygen. Mm-hmm. You want to force it back to the 647 zone. So you may find yourself greater than 7. If so, as you begin working on it, you may crash down to 5. Then you work your way back up in the green zone. Every tenth of a pH you get closer to the ideal range is a 10-fold increase in tissue oxygen. So this is essential for long life, great health, for your bones, for everything. And most people sort of think of the bones as one other part of the body. Mm-hmm. Wrong view. The bone is where all the cells are coming from. Every day, you got a B cell coming out of the bone, and it's differentiated white for immunity and red for energy. Okay. So if we can't nourish the bone, and the one thing the body can't do is make minerals. So if you don't get an adequate amount, slowly but surely, the body has to make choices as to where it will starve oxygen. And I have to tell you, you can live without reproductive organs. Mm-hmm. So the body will not give them top priority.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So if she wants to solve this problem, the first step is get the tissue oxygen. The second thing we've observed is that dairy, American dairy, is literally a hormone storm. There's a pharmacist who spent 8 years researching this, Dr. Lisa Everett in Kansas City. Okay. And that's her phrase, hormone storm. So killing the dairy for a while and getting the pH back to normal may have never been normal. Getting it into the normal range is going to be your best option to promote the best structure and function for your ovaries and uterus.
Okay, and so they can get pH paper by calling up your order line.
From us, $10. You can go to the pharmacy and buy it for $30.
Okay, and now how would they force their morning urine down? Is there a protocol, supplements that they would use to do that?
Yes, if the kidneys are good and healthy, and she's young, she can get something called pH Trio. And if she goes online or calls the order line, 800-370-3447, they're open Monday through Saturday, not today.
Okay.
800-370-3447. They'll talk you through a simple pH protocol that can help you drive that pH back into the ideal zone. Some people are difficult, and you need to support kidney and or parathyroid. Some people may have a dead tooth or some other problem sucking up all the minerals. But you take it one step at a time, and if she's young, chances are a pH Trio will do the job.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's a good first step. And all of your people there are extremely knowledgeable when people call up, I believe, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah. They've been with me a long time, and they'll be able to really help you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we got another one here. Let's see, all the way from Cape Town. Wow, Teresa, she says she's 36 years old, a first-time mom, and just gave birth 4 months ago, and she's scared about losing the ability to make breast milk.
That's a good thing to be concerned about. So let me tell you what will give you 4 times as much breast milk. First step is making sure you have enough water. And you need 1 ounce per pound of body weight in water per day. And if you're not even close to that, quickly begin increasing 8 ounces per day. Stay at an 8 ounce increase for 4 or 5 days, then another 8 ounce until you get to 1 ounce per pound of body weight, okay?
Okay.
That's step 1. Step 2 is to get some nutritional yeast. And I've been to Cape Town, beautiful place. Kind of hard to get nutritional supplements, but Lord willing, you can get nutritional yeast flakes.
Okay.
I would take about 4 tablespoons a day, rounded tablespoons per day. Within 10 days, you should have so much milk that when you roll over, there's milk everywhere. Then you cut down to about 2 tablespoons. You'll also notice the nutritional yeast flakes are 50% protein. So normally they put the child into a really deep sleep, so he sleeps completely through the night like my kids did, and they're not a nuisance and they don't disrupt your sleep. These are 2 of the real critical things. The other player that I'm not sure you can get in Cape Town is docosahexaenoic acid. This is a DHA from microalgae, and this is the oil that can make such a difference for the growth and development of the brain of the fetus, but also to maintain your health and keep you from experiencing stretch marks and other damage to your skin and body as a result of having the child.
Excellent. So that's DHA, not DHEA, right?
Correct. DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. They might be able to get some in cod liver oil, but there's so little, and at this point you would need so much. You need about a gram, 1,000 milligrams. That's about 5 200 milligram capsules. Okay. And to get that in cod liver oil, you'd have to have about 20 capsules. You know.
Okay. So
hopefully she can find that. Can
they order from your website? International? Or
yes, but I don't know if you can get into, I don't think we ship overseas like that.
Okay.
It's too difficult. The laws, are so restrictive for entry of many of the products.
I understand. And all right, we'll just kind of rapid fire a couple more of these, and then we'll get back to kind of some chit-chat about health. Let's see, we've got another one, Bethany from Omaha. Let's see. She's 33 years old, female, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis a year ago. What kinds of things can I do to start healing?
Well, this is a very nasty one. There is one study from New York University at Stony Brook, 1971, that showed that histidine at a level of 3 grams per day might help to contain or prevent some of the tissue damage. That's the only thing I've seen like that. Otherwise, what needs to be done, what would be the best thing for her to do is to promote a healthy immune response. In that regard, I think the aloe arborescens would be a very big help. And if she goes online, she can look up information about it. maybe a tablespoon 3 times per day. There's also, of course, the Medi-Clay. Actually, it's called Dragon Clay Detox. Dragon Detox, I'll get it right, Dragon Detox Clay. And taking maybe one of these mixed in 8 ounces of water and consumed with the food may also help promote a better immune response for her. But clearly, the aloe is one of the big stars.
Okay, and so with rheumatoid arthritis, there's something going on there with toxins being leaked into the gut, into the bloodstream, isn't there? And the body's all of a sudden just is jumping on everything as far as an immune response. Is that?
It's actually a little trickier than that. There may well be demethylation, and the demethylation, of course, can lead to bad gene expression. And so remethylation, by using things like HCl, by using things like aloe, by using pancreatic enzymes like the plant-based ones, these can promote remethylation.
Okay.
And that is one issue that she's going to have to deal with. But the ideal thing here would be for her to visit with someone who knows quantum reflex analysis, because this can be very tricky and very, very destructive if you don't get after it right away.
Okay, that makes sense. And you know what? I'm gonna take a little. While we're doing rapid fire here for these conditions that people have, I'll just throw in a couple of my own. I was diagnosed in 1991 with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and I have heart flutters. So that's one of the things that I'm dealing with, and I know a lot of people out there have that. So,
well, generally speaking, these things like that are linked to a blow, a trauma, an injury. And so here you have to get into the energy field, find the injury, mud pack it, get the energy to flow freely again to the heart, and that's the end of the game. In general, injuries go like this. If you have 2 of anything and only one is giving you trouble, whether it's eyes or kidneys or ears, then you should always think interference field.
Okay.
And for someone your age, when this comes on, you're not born with it. It comes on later. It's almost always an interference field, a blow, a trauma. It may be a blow to your head. It could be a bad tooth. It could be a root canal tooth. It could be a chest blow, maybe from a fall or a fight or whatever. And nothing happens at the time. You feel fine at the time, but the interference field after 10, 15, 20 years now begins to show weird symptoms.
Interesting. Yeah, well, that makes sense, because I had a torn ACL about 3 years ago, and I've got a root canal. So those are issues I'm trying to deal with.
Yeah. And so for you, one of the best things to do would be maybe have someone who knows QRA well test to see if either of these reflex to the heart.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what you're looking for.
Well, we're in Southern California, so maybe I'll come up to the Santa Monica clinic, and
that would be great.
Yeah, that would be excellent. All right, so I wanted to talk. When we first started, we kind of just jumped right into it, and you in your bio, and I know this from your radio show, but maybe for our listeners, you can tell the story about how you were poisoned almost to death by taking a genetically modified supplement, and that's kind of how you got started with the supplement industry.
That is, in fact, God bless them, the money that they paid me for the settlement is what started the company.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And although I think I'd much rather not gotten the money that way. But anyway, way back in 1988, at that time I was a marathon runner. And in 1986, I had my best running time. But I was poisoned continuously from late 1988 to November 13th, 1990. There was a form of tryptophan in a B vitamin. And the FDA called me November 13th, 1990, and asked me if I was selling this particular one. I said yes. And so I stopped selling it and stopped taking it. But around August 15th of 1990, I'd begun bringing up giant pieces of lung tissue. And I had very high eosinophil counts, so I thought I'd picked up a bad case of roundworm. So I got some mebendazole, which is 100% cure for roundworm, took it, and nothing happened. It was just, in fact, I was slightly worse. So I knew something else was going on, but I couldn't figure out what it was. None of my nutrients would help, but I wasn't manufacturing at the time. I was buying from this guy who used this cheap tryptophan. And you know what's so amusing about this? I had a dream in 1986 about about amino acids, not tryptophan. And I knew that the best company on earth was a company named Showa. So that was the bad guys. The good company was Angiomoto.
Okay.
I'll be all right here. And so I called the guy who was making stuff for me, and I said, I want you to promise me you will only use Angiomoto products for amino acids in my supplements. And ultimately we shook hands, and he said yes. But a few years later, he got a 25% discount from the other company to buy tryptophan, and so he used that, and that's what started this whole nightmare. And by 94, I could hardly walk, and it was a really, really rough go. Nothing that I knew would help, so I started looking at energy medicine, which I always thought was silly. And my first 5, 6, 7 times, the people were certifiable. And so I fast and pray, and I go to, I recommended I go see this guy who I thought was also not playing with a full deck. So I don't go. Months go by, I'm even worse. And I fast and pray again, and it says, go see this guy. So I go see him. And he's worse than I thought. But he calls in Dr. Linda Forbes, and she gives a second opinion. And I remember her from teaching at the college, the California Acupuncture College. I remembered her. She was one of 2 people who could each time truly tell where the energy was. So we started working together and devised this system, QRA, and that's what saved my life. And as we went to points, we couldn't balance them. So we made up products that would balance those meridian points. And that's where our line has come from. So we developed a line of nutrients for organs and glands that have no animal glandular because it's lower cell resonance than humans. And we then began using the harmonics of plants to achieve the cell resonance, the ideal cell resonance for a human heart, brain, kidney, pancreas. And this took more than 10 years. But as we did this, and each time we could get another meridian point to test on, I got stronger and stronger and stronger until around 2002 or so, when I was pretty well clear. But it took all that time. It was really great suffering.
That's amazing. So, do you think that in your lifetime or in your study, some of the couple of the greatest, aha moments was this biofield and maybe the demethylation and people needing to eat raw food and that photonic exchange? Do you think that this is the biggest thing that you've stumbled on?
It's a biggie, but I think the biggest thing is to create an energy field that is like the body was in before all these pyramids were built and before we were being depolarized by the energy of our environment. And the amusing part of the energy of the environment is that every test, every study, anything you do is done in this field. So it's awfully hard to create a field free of this field.
Interesting.
But I actually think we're very close to doing that, and that will be the most profound thing. But I think there's 2 other things that have come along that really excite me. One is that I'm convinced there are mycotoxins in food, like aflatoxin from peanuts, and I'm convinced that these chemicals build up in the body, build up in the intestine, build up in the gallbladder and the liver, And hydrochloric acid does not break them down. Digestants don't break them down. Coffee enemas, all the flushes, none of these things really get at them. So freeing the body of this is one of the hardest jobs of all, and I think we're very close to that. And I think that the discovery of some of these new clays, if you read more about them, you can go to pubmed.gov and look up Dr. Tim Phillips. And wow, what a piece of research has been done there. Wow. And I think you'll see that along with digestive enzymes, which are not covered in any clinical nutrition book. The Bible of a clinical nutritionist is a book called Modern Nutrition and Health and Disease. There isn't a single word that delineates the difference between a raw food and a cooked food. There isn't a single word about the use of a digestive enzyme, especially hydrochloric acid. And just so that you understand hydrochloric acid, if you watch a fetus develop, it looks like the stomach was an afterthought. It does not look like it was planned as part of the body. And when I view the stomach, I think if I were a prehistoric man and I gouged the heck out of my arm, I'm not going to have an antibiotic. I may not even wash the thing out. So how am I going to keep from not losing my arm or dying over the arm? Well, modern medicine thinks they just died over the arm. I don't agree. I think they produced hydrochloric acid by the ton in their stomach, and it, through the blood, disinfected the site.
Wow.
But when you're eating cooked food day and night, 7 days a week, all the time, this afterthought system is exhausted quickly. And what we see is in your 30s or even 20s, people are complaining of acid indigestion. And we, through our white-collar crimes, have arranged to make people think that the stomach is producing too much acid and you need an antacid. So people are spending somewhere around $60 billion on antacids in America. To me, this is one of the premier white-collar crimes that's ever been hoisted on any group of people in the recorded history of man. What's actually happening is you've exhausted your system. You either didn't have enough salt, or you've just worn it out, or you're an anorexic and bulimic, and you've scarred the lining so you can't produce HCl. Whatever you've done, your food is rotting. The lactic acid burns just like hydrochloric acid. So you take an antacid, okay, the burning stops. Great. But now the food rots from the stomach to the anus, disordering your bacterial ecology and inhibiting production of B vitamins, increasing weight in your gut, fatigue, overwhelming the liver with rotting food. Just a huge daymare. Just everything is going wrong. And as you watch people age, you see them accumulate the weight at the gut, and they start having all these things, but they're also doing what? They're demethylating. So now the time bomb of bad genes is being expressed. And there's only one way to go, is to die.
Right. Wow.
So if you don't like that as door number one, door number two is you don't eat another cooked food without taking digestive enzymes. And in fact, you start thinking about it, man, could I have some more fermented raw food? Could I change my diet a little bit? Could I get away from charbroiled this and fried that and so forth, which is so integrated into our way of thinking of quote-unquote food. And when you do that, you look at people that's 70 or 80, my God, they're totally devastated,
Right.
So to me, the aha is, number one, digestion. Number two, these new clays. Number three, staying away from these foods that have the potential to impart lots of aflatoxin. And what would that be? Corn. What would that be? Peanuts, legumes in particular. These guys are a tough guy from the standpoint of the potential for mycotoxins. And make no mistake, if you get a high enough concentration of this stuff, you die. And it often kills animals and livestock. So it's an issue that's are not even really discussed. And getting it out of your body, wow. Now you're talking at the threshold of our understanding of physiology.
Wow, that's
so those are the ahas for me.
Yeah, that's so it's unlike most, very unconventional and very cutting edge. Let me just run this quick ad, and we'll be right back. I've got a lot more to get through with you, and we'll be right back after this message. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I wanted to talk a little bit about tooth decay, and I'm not sure if you know this, but lots of biological dentists around the world that are on the cutting edge of research have made the connection between tooth decay, cavitations, and root canals to things like heart disease and cancer. And I'm not sure if your dentist has told you that, but the health of your mouth is critically important to your overall health. And there's a great book that teaches you how to reverse tooth decay, cavities, and eliminate tooth pain and root canals, stop cavities, and form new tooth enamel, something that your dentist probably has never heard about. It's called Cure Tooth Decay. You can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/decay. And if your dentist is currently trying to persuade you to get a root canal or to get your wisdom teeth taken out or anything like that, I strongly and highly suggest that you read this book. It's about $25, and it can change your life, because the health of your mouth and the health of your gums and teeth is going to directly correlate to your overall health and your longevity. So the health of your teeth is a critical component to how long you live and whether or not you get disease. So you can check out this book. It's called Cure Tooth Decay at extremehealthradio.com/decay. And if you're interested in more products just like this, visit our store and you can check out all of the amazing products we have on there for you. All right, so let's get back to this interview. Okay, we're with Dr. Bob Marshall from healthline.cc, and I wasn't actually planning that, but I believe that's a good segue, Doctor, to talk a little bit about the oral health of our nation. And we've had quite a few guests on recently have been talking about that. We had Dr. Gerald Smith a couple days ago. We've had Dr. Bruce Shelton, and he was also talking about the importance of oral health and things like this. So our listeners are, on the cutting edge of this stuff, and they want to know. And so what are your opinions about all of these teeth problems and, in relation to health?
Well, we know, if you ever read any stories about the wagon trains that crossed the Great Divide to come to California, if you ever read those stories, you'll know that when a woman had a baby on the road, typically she lost one tooth. The body would decompose the tooth to get the minerals it needed for the fetus. Mm. So the terrible health of the teeth, I think, linked to two things. First, minerals, inadequate minerals. And this is an easy thing to fix. All you got to do is get a roll of pH paper, $10, 14 yards. Mm-hmm. If you don't drop it in the toilet, it's about a cent or two a test. Mm-hmm. You can monitor your children, everyone in the family, once every 3 days. You check till it's stable. Once it's stable, you check it maybe once a week. And your goal is to be in that green zone. When you're in that green zone, you have a beautiful, indirect, super cheap method of telling if you have adequate mineral nutriture. When the children grow, my son is 6'4", and the last Sunday of the month, I would always measure him and see if he grew more than ½ inch. I knew I had to start checking his pH every 3 days because he might go acid, because the growth spurt demands so much in the way of minerals. So I monitored him, and my two children never spent a day sick in bed and never had a cavity. So I think that I knew something about that. And I watched their friends devastated. But there's two other aspects to the dental health. One of them is the consumption of empty calorie food, white flour, white sugar. These foods challenge the body and use up its mineral and its organic acid reserves. And by doing so, it can shift the pH in the mouth very, very dramatically and set the stage for the bacteria that form decay called caries. And so we can do a couple things. You know, if the child has gone somewhere and gotten this crap, you can get something we call dentivin, which has a special form of salivarius bacteria that competes with and inhibits these other organisms. So you can do this, and if the child's under 100 pounds, one capsule, you chew it a little bit, leave it under your tongue so that it's going to sort of re-inoculate the mouth. These are steps you can take very, very quickly, but the underpinning across the board is inadequate mineral nutrition. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, the underpinning for a lot of our illness. Now,
is my understanding correct that each tooth, I guess, goes to a particular organ in the body? Is that kind of?
Oh, well, that's the Germans did a chart of the tooth mapping done by the work of Reinhard Bohl, who did electroacupuncture according to Bohl. He sort of reinvented acupuncture. And most of it's pretty accurate, I would say, but some disagrees with ancient acupuncture. Mm-hmm. So there's some room for controversy, but by and large, I'd say the German maps are very good.
Okay. And people, if I'm not mistaken, people can call you guys up, and you have a PDF style thing that you can send people. It's called Making the Right Dental Choices. Is that right?
We don't offer that anymore, but we used to offer that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we can answer some questions about the dental work. I love Dr. Jerry Smith. He's one of the best. Mm-hmm. I do believe, though, that the finest restoration in the mouth is going to be a low-fusing ceramic, bioidentical to your own teeth. Mm-hmm. Laser bonded, the finished tooth is stronger than the original tooth. I have such restorations since what was first done in the United States, 1994.
Oh, wow. So the teeth are just, I mean, we're just learning, and, you know, I think people are catching on that your oral health is so much more important than we think, you know.
Exactly. And if you look at the long-lived people, they have next to nothing in the way of dental restorations.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were talking earlier about not doing animal foods and dairy and things like that. Do you do any fermented? I know you're a big fermented food fan. Do you do fermented, dairy and milk and things like that?
Well, you can, and I used to be in love with a brand called Fresh Made out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
There was a Russian guy who started that in 1953. I understand he sold it out to Lifeway. I don't know if the brand still exists, but he had perhaps the best kefir I've ever seen. And the reason I loved it is he made it with non-fat milk, so the hormone storm is not present. Those steroidal hormones are all trapped in the fat. So that was the ultimate. Today, pretty much the only thing you can buy when you go to the health food store is low fat, which is way better but not ideal. So non-fat is the way to go if you're going to do it. And of course, the kefir cultures are far more efficient at converting lactose, the bad guy in the milk, to galactose and glucose, two of the good sugars.
Okay, because I buy right now, I mean, I would love to buy a raw milk, but for my kefir, I've been buying like an organic Horizon, I believe, and I've been buying regular. Is that a bad choice?
Well, the one that tests the best is the low-fat or green pastures plain kefir.
Okay.
That's the one that energetically tests the best.
Interesting. Okay. And you buy the kefir already made, or do you make it with grains?
Yeah, and you got that one, is real kefir. The culture is live and ready to go.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So, how much of your diet do you eat any animal foods or I know you eat a lot of fermented foods, but do you do any animal products at all? You do?
Yes. I'm working on a new diet where we test everything in your energy field. Mm-hmm. And because of the quality of the vegetables, it's so poor. I have gone to eating meat, but when I eat the meat, the meat is barely cooked. So it's pretty much raw. In other words, I warm it up and eat it. And to do that, you pretty much have to have a very high quality meat like New Zealand lamb or Colorado buffalo, something like that. But you can also do this with wild caught salmon, and you can be more like the bear than the human, okay, who eats it right there in the stream. But I believe that from an intellectual standpoint that we should be vegetarian. But we are so perverse, and I use that word deliberately, in the way we produce our food, that the use of NPK, the use of pesticides, the use of all these chemicals gives us a second-class vegetable. And I was strict vegetarian for 11 years, and I believe I've actually damaged my body doing that.
Interesting.
But, you know, my fantasy and what I'm working toward, and I have 100 acres, is to produce food the way it was more than 100 years ago. And when I can do that, then I no longer have to kill anything to eat.
Wow, that's incredible. So how long do you think, if everything, you know, if all things were ideal, I know that's kind of, you know, it's almost impossible to imagine, but if all things were ideal, how long do you think we're made to live?
Well, a minimum of 120.
Minimum.
120 is the minimum, yeah. And, of course, you know, your DNA, if you go back to the Bible there, you'll see that the sons of God, who we know very little of, had sex with the daughters of men. And who is men and who are sons of God? And there are reason to believe the sons of God lived 200, 300,000 years. Now, obviously, from the Genome Project, we know that we have been we've been given a very restricted gene bank. In fact, 2% defines us. 98% were originally considered junk genes. Now we know that of those supposed junk genes, 35% are virus and cancer genes. So we know we're in a time bomb with these genes, and we also know that they get expressed when we demethylate. So how do we demethylate? Well, we char-broil the meat, and the flame goes all over the meat. Tastes so good, but we form these huge amounts of heterocyclic amines. And I'm probably going to get some enemies on your radio show, but before I get off this subject, if you like char-broiled meat, I'm not here to take it away from you. I'm here to stop it from being a nail in your coffin. So what you do is you get the coals red hot in a pyramid, and then you make them in a circle. Put the meat in the middle, so when the fat drips, the flame does not touch the meat. You have all the taste, no cancer.
Okay.
So these are things we can do if we become aware. But as you realize, the biggest demethylation episode is eating cooked food without taking hydrochloric acid.
Yeah, and as you get older, you don't produce really much of any hydrochloric acid, right?
No, the studies that were done in the 70s with the Heidelberg capsule, a radio transmitter, people were much healthier then, but at 65, you were at 23%. At 75, you were at 0 to 10.
0 to 10. Wow. That is just so, I mean, golly. So in order to live
you
along...
very much have to die.
You got no choice, right?
You know, you don't get door number 1 or 2 or 3. You only get door number 1.
Well, you know what I love about this time we're living in is information is so much more accessible, and we're learning things, you know, that we would never have known 50 years ago. The information couldn't have spread like it is now.
And you know what I love about this time? We're able to help each other. That's the best.
Yeah, that's so...
So when you come to my world, I can give you my best. When I come to your world, you can give me your best.
Yeah, that's amazing. So in wrapping up, I want to be respectful of your time because I know you're only out here once every 5 weeks. But what kinds of things, are you working on anything new with your product line, your website, your seminars? What kind of, or what's...
Well, we have a wonderful new New Zealand deer antler. And this one is produced without the toxic, potentially carcinogenic anesthetic. and it is freeze-dried, no excipient of any kind, and it's strictly from one farm, not brokered. And I'm very excited about the potential for this to promote the health of the spine, the reproductive system, and, of course, cartilage and connective tissue. We also have something brand new coming out called Dermathin. It's out already. This is a solubilized keratin for the most beautiful hair, skin, and nails.
And what was that called?
And finally, that's called Dermathin.
Dermathin, okay.
And finally, soon we will have, and of course we have this wonderful clay, the Dragon Detox Clay, which we talked about a little earlier, and we also will soon have another aloe form, highly concentrated. I'm very excited about that, which will be used in many of our products, and it can be used standalone as well for great immune health, and I believe it'll also be a player in the health of all the mucous membranes. So that's coming. That's not out yet. And by the end of this month, we should have some of our great agents to promote a healthy energy field environment, which I think is equal in discovery to all the other things I just talked about.
Wow, that's just... Wow. So I would encourage our listeners to go on to healthline.cc and start listening to Dr. Marshall's radio show, because he's one of the best that I've ever heard. And I listen to this type of health radio shows all day long. And so his information is, it's amazing. I love it. And so do you do that radio show once a week, or is it more often than
6 days a week? 6 days a week. It's on for a half hour Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And then Saturday for an hour. And you can also visit qnlabs.com and look up all the radio times. And the one broadcast streams till the next day, then it shifts. But you can go in the archive. There's up to 30 days of broadcasts in there.
Oh, man, that's great. Okay, so our listeners, I'll send our listeners to your site, and we'll have all this information on our show page, which is extremehealthradio.com/18. And Doctor, would you mind hanging on for just one moment as I close out the show?
No problem at all. And if I can, that phone number, if you want to call with a question, 800-370-3447.
Excellent.
I'll hang on.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Doctor. All right, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you learned a lot from Dr. Marshall. He is one of the most amazing doctors that I've ever heard talk on this subject. So I really hope you enjoyed this show. If you could do me a favor, if you've learned something from this show and got value, would you do me a favor and click like on this show page, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and maybe send this link to your friends. We're really relying on you to help get the word out about this information, as we were talking about earlier with the doctor. And also, don't forget to visit our store. We've got lots of really cutting-edge products on the store, from blenders and rebounders and all kinds of great stuff. So, and also just a reminder, we are 100% listener supported. So all of our shows are free, and you can donate any amount you would like. I would really, really appreciate it. No pressure at all, though. If you can't, you can just like us on Facebook and